Hi, my name is John Lewis.
And I'm Stuart Gaffney.
And we were one of the plaintiff couples in the marriage equality cases in California that brought the freedom to marry to California in 2008.
Today, we're going to tell you a bit of our personal story of how we became involved in the case and why we've continued to be active in the marriage equality movement for the last 17 years.
We wanted to share with you on a really personal level about why marriage equality really matters to us personally, as it does to millions of same-sex couples, LGBT people, our allies, and our supporters.
We met 34 years ago, back in 1987, at a small political house party. We felt an instant connection and immediate comfort and familiarity, a sense that we were already family. In fact, the weekend after we met, I told a good friend, I think I've met my future husband. Even though the idea that we could actually get married was unimaginable at that time. Over the years, we became a family together and part of each other's families. We have two wonderful nieces that you see here, and twice we took a year off from work to travel around the world together, each time spending literally every sleeping and waking moment together for the entire year. But as we grew older, we realized that we were living as a married couple, in fact, but had none of the legal protections for each other and our relationship that other married couples had. And in really important aspects of our lives, like healthcare and insurance and taxation.
So we decided to get involved in the burgeoning marriage equality movement. And the first thing we decided to do was that I would go to a lunchtime protest rally for marriage equality to be held on the steps of San Francisco City Hall on February 12th, 2004, now over 17 years ago. Back in February 2004, the Massachusetts Supreme Court had already ruled in favor of marriage equality in that state, but marriages would not begin until later in the year. So at that time, no gay couple had legally married anywhere in the United States. Stuart had an important lunch meeting downtown that day, so our plan was that I would attend the rally and learn how we could get involved in the movement. And then I'd report back to Stuart that night. But when I got to the rally, something extraordinary had happened. The mayor of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom, who is now the governor of California, decided that San Francisco should no longer discriminate against LGBTQ couples in marriage. And he burst open the doors of City Hall for same-sex couples to marry. He did it right then, that morning. In fact, right at the very same time that I arrived at the rally. And I was just stunned. I could not believe it. What an extraordinary opportunity. We could actually get married. But I had a problem, a really big problem. I was by myself, and you can't marry yourself. So I called Stuart as fast as possible before he left for his lunch meeting.
Well, let's just say it was the most urgent marriage proposal ever. It went something like this. Get here now! You know, when I imagined my wedding day, I had thought maybe some champagne, maybe some flowers, chocolates, maybe a ring. No, it was just John screaming into the phone, get here now! Well, of course, I dropped everything. I got up from my desk as fast as I could, and I dashed to City Hall. I knew that we had no time to waste. We understood that the city of San Francisco was doing something highly unusual, and the opponents of equality could be in court at that very minute trying to stop the marriages. We thought that this might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get married, and we didn't want to miss it. I arrived at City Hall where John was eagerly waiting on the front steps.
And we went right into City Hall and we got married. It was just the two of us. And when we heard the words ring out, and now, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the state of California, I pronounce you legally married spouses for life. We felt something transform within us. I felt chills go up and down my body. We had both come out as openly gay men years before. But when we married, I discovered that there were still places in my body that I was unaware of, where I was still holding on a little bit to a little bit of shame that I would never be fully accepted by my government as an LGBT person. Always be treated as somehow second best. Maybe a partnership certificate or a civil union, but never marriage. And when I heard those words, all of those places I had been holding, they just fell away like chunks of an iceberg, melting and breaking off into the sea. And I realized at that moment that this is the first time in my life that I have felt my government treating me as an equal human being, as an LGBT person, and treating our relationship, our family, our love, with the same dignity and respect that everybody else had, treating our family and love as first class, not second class. This is what it feels like to be equal. The experience was so foreign to me, I didn't even know what I'd been missing. And it changed everything. We realized at that moment that we needed to do everything in our power to make that feeling of equality and dignity and respect a lasting reality, not only for ourselves, but for every LGBT person who wanted it. And indeed, for everyone, because this dignity is a universal human right.
What was happening at San Francisco City Hall made international headlines. Thousands of people from across the country and around the world flocked to San Francisco over the next 30 days for what they thought might be their only chance to get married. In all, over 8,000 people from 46 states and 8 countries around the world came to City Hall to get married.
But then the California Supreme Court stopped the weddings. And after 30 days, the marriages no longer went on. And 6 months later, in a split decision, the court held that all the marriages like ours were invalid. They took away our marriage, ruling it null and void. And they said that San Francisco could not on its own marry same-sex couples without going to the court first for them to determine whether the state's existing ban on gay marriage was constitutional.
Well, of course we were devastated, but a week later, we stood up and along with a prominent lesbian couple and the city of San Francisco, we joined an ongoing lawsuit that other couples had brought for marriage equality in California. One of the things that our personal story added to the case was the story of my mom and dad. My mom and dad were an interracial couple. My mother is Chinese American, and my dad is English and Irish American. When they met, 30 states prohibited interracial couples from marrying. Indeed, they were only able to marry in California because the California Supreme Court in 1948 became the first state Supreme Court in the nation to overturn an interracial marriage ban. Now, a second generation of our family was relying on that same California Supreme Court for marriage equality. In 2008, together, we collectively won the lawsuit, making California the second state in the United States after Massachusetts to have marriage equality. Seconds after the court announced the ruling, my mom called to ask one simple question: when's the wedding? And we got married again, this time surrounded by our friends and family, and this time for good. It was particularly meaningful for us to have my mom and dad there for our wedding. And approximately 18,000 other loving couples got married in California the summer and fall of 2008.
As you might know, after all that joy, California voters in November of 2008 narrowly passed Proposition 8, which took away the right of same-sex couples to marry in California again. And it took another 8 years for the United States Supreme Court to rule in favor of marriage equality nationwide. We were, of course, thrilled when the Supreme Court ruled that way. And we were particularly gratified by the last two sentences of the court's decision. The court said that LGBTQ people, quote, ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. And the Constitution grants them that right. It felt like we had gone full circle. The United States Supreme Court was affirming what we had experienced so personally that very first hour we got involved in the movement, our common humanity and dignity.
And those are the values that inspire us to continue to participate with many other wonderful people in the global movement for LGBTQ equality and human rights. Thank you very much for allowing us to share part of our story with you today. We invite you to get engaged with marriage equality.